It's too hard. I'll never get it in a real game anyway. Those are the kinds of rationalizations that will prevent you from developing your chess. Now, the first thing to say is that if you can't do this ending, you don't know how the dog and the cat work together. But the reason I really wanted to do this video is that there are two deeper truths about the game that this mate shows. The first is, to do it correctly, you really need an internalized sense of what Zugzwang is. The guy has to move, and you have to see, you have to feel that he has to move. And the second is square control and the visualization of where that control is going to lead. If you can see it in this simple ending, simple just means there's less pieces on the board, then you will begin to develop that skill in more complex situations. Now, when I consider the whining that goes on about the bishop and knight mate, it feels very similar to the kind of complaints I see when people talk about the mate in twos. My favorite mate in two book is, of course, this epic tome by the Polgar dad, right? And this thing people really like to complain about because they see a position like this and they'll say, oh, well, I could do it anyway. You know, if it didn't have to be mate in two, I could figure it out anyway. They hear it all the time. And what they're not seeing is that the two things that I'm hoping you get out of the bishop and knight mate, an internalized sense of Zugzwang and the visualization of square control as it goes forward, comes out in these kinds of problems. And if you don't know how to do this one, then you're really going to do an ugly mate with the rook as well. So you see how these things, the Zugzwang and square control, relate to more than one ending. All right, there's just really one thing to know, one algorithm, and we're going to call it the W. Back in the day, we didn't have the W. The W is this newfangled, beautiful thing that people have created, and I'm going to show it to you. But I want to stress that even without it, you should be able to use square control to walk the king over from the wrong corner to the right corner, the color of the bishop. So let's take a look. We begin by taking away h8. We'll just waste a move now, Zugzwang. Take away g8. And now here's the moment where most people experience extreme anxiety, and it's here where really their ambitions of becoming a chess player are sometimes dashed because they give up here. And that's this anxiety of the king running. It looks like the king can just run forever here. Now, first thing to say is if you didn't know about the W, this elegant maneuver, back in the day we would do things like this. And it would take a little longer, but we would definitely just keep on cutting those squares away, right? And let's just slowly push them back. So for example, here and here, the guy is moving back. All right, and a lot of the techniques that we use in the W, you can imagine pushing him back from here. Let me show you this beautiful W though. And what are we talking about by W, by the way? In general, it's like we went here to F7, to E5, to D7, and we'll see in some cases we even come back all the way out here. And it's just a nice simple thing to remember. And the real kicker of it is right here, which is let's call it mildly anti-intuitive catch, but a beautiful one with bishop D3, right? The knight covers these squares, the bishop covers this one. Oh man, really nice. And then the king goes back, we take away more squares. Notice that with the mate in twos and this ending, mini endings, you are not really putting the king in check. You are taking squares away from the king. All right, let's take a look. King d8, and here's another nice one, very important one to know. Now we're just going to walk the dog. There's our knight c5, and here again, we'll just waste the move. Notice if he goes to b8, he's in that catch that we talked about at the very beginning. Right? Plugged. So, bishop f7, knight b7, walk him over. And again, the same pattern over here. And I'm going to let you guys figure it out from here. It's like mate in 3 or 4. Okay, now we should cover one more variation, and that is back here if he didn't go to c7 and went back instead. Let's look at this. So e8, similar pattern that we just looked at. The W commences. This is a W either way he goes. We again just wait. We'll walk him over. Same thing. He's in the corner. And then anybody can figure it out from here. All right. Now you could say to me, Kraai, you're not going to show me how to get him to the side of the board? No. I think you should be able to figure that out on your own. My key tip, though, is it's always zugzwang. And so, for example, a common pattern you'll get is something like this position, where I'm just going to play bishop e4, controlling these squares, and say, you got to move back, you have to cede ground. And that's in general how it's going to work the entire way. And one reason I want to stress that it's possible to move him back just by intuition is in my next video, I'm going to do something far more brutal and show that it's possible to do this ending. And one of the things to see about this ending that pertains to the bishop and knight checkmate is in this ending, the king and the knight have to push the black king back on their own. They can get no help from the other knight, because if the other knight moves, this pawn will run, and if you take it, it's not going to work. Two knights cannot mate alone. They need that pawn to be able to move. And I'll show that in my next video. Bye-bye.